There comes a moment in every divine connection when the air shifts, a moment so subtle you almost miss it, yet so powerful it rearranges everything beneath the surface. It feels like the universe has paused, just long enough for your soul to whisper, "Something is changing." You don't know why your heart feels calmer, or why your intuition suddenly feels louder. You can't explain why the silence no longer terrifies you, or why your energy feels different, lighter, clearer, more certain. But deep inside, you know, this isn't another cycle. This isn't another wave of longing or healing. This is the beginning. The beginning of a transformation the divine feminine cannot force, yet cannot stop. A preparation she doesn't chase, but naturally rises into. An awakening that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but arrives like a shift in the wind, quiet, undeniable, and meant only for the soul to recognize. Because before physical union ever approaches, something sacred happens within her. Her energy recalibrates. Her intuition sharpens. Her spirit begins aligning with the timeline she was always destined to walk. And the masculine, whether he understands it or not, feels every ripple of this change. If you've been sensing a new clarity in your heart, if you've felt a strange peace replacing old fears, if something inside you knows your journey has entered a new phase, then you may already be experiencing the 6 signs the divine feminine preparation for union has begun. Let's step into them, one awakening at a time. 1. Strengthening of the feminine intuitive compass. When the divine feminine begins strengthening her intuitive compass, something profound awakens within her. Her intuition, once soft and subtle, no longer arrives as gentle whispers she can easily overlook. It becomes a clear internal instruction, direct, unmistakable, and deeply rooted in her spiritual knowing. She stops trying to figure out life through the mind, because her body and soul now speak louder than her thoughts. Her guidance is not conceptual, it is embodied. She feels truth in her chest, in her energy, in the subtle shifts that move through her spirit. What once took her days of analyzing now becomes instant recognition. She senses misalignment the moment it enters her field, whether it comes from a person, a situation, an opportunity, or even a timeline that does not resonate with her evolution. This intuitive strengthening marks one of the most powerful phases of the divine feminine's awakening. Her sensitivity becomes her clarity. Her emotional language becomes her inner compass. Her discernment sharpens not through suspicion, but through deep alignment. She no longer doubts what she feels, nor does she silence her intuition in favor of logic or external expectations. She understands now that intuition is not meant to be questioned, but trusted. And this trust reshapes everything: her relationships, her decisions, her path, and the energy she allows into her life. At the same time, she experiences a natural integration with her higher self. The gap between who she is spiritually and who she is physically begins to dissolve. She no longer moves through life carrying 2 separate identities, the wounded self and the awakened one. Instead, she becomes a unified expression of her truth. Her human self listens, her higher self leads, and together they create harmony within her inner world. This integration brings a sense of calm confidence. Even when she cannot see the full picture, she feels guided. Even when the path ahead looks unclear, she knows she is aligned. She doesn't need to force clarity, she trusts timing. She doesn't need external signs, she feels the answer internally. Her choices begin to reflect long-term soul truth rather than momentary emotional reactions. And perhaps most beautiful of all, she stops fearing the unknown. She walks forward with grace because her inner compass is steady, awakened, and deeply connected to her destiny. This is the divine feminine rising, not by searching for direction, but by becoming the direction itself. 2. Rewriting the feminine relationship with desire. As the divine feminine evolves on her spiritual path, one of the most transformative shifts she experiences is the rewriting of her relationship with desire. Desire, for so long, was intertwined with longing, fear, or the hope of filling an emotional void. But now, something within her begins to awaken, something deeper, clearer, and far more sacred. Her desire no longer comes from a place of needing union to feel whole. It no longer grows out of fear of loss, abandonment, or the ache of separation. Instead, her desire becomes an expression of her expansion. She realizes that true desire is not about possessing an outcome, but about evolving into the version of herself who can hold the love she seeks. This births a new kind of longing, one rooted in growth, evolution, and truth. She is no longer seeking union to soothe wounds or complete unfinished emotional cycles. Instead, she desires alignment, authenticity, and a connection that reflects her highest self. This is where desire shifts from, "I need union to feel safe," into, "I desire what aligns with my soul." It becomes an energy of empowerment, not attachment. An invitation, not a plea. A vibration of abundance, not fear. Through this shift, she naturally becomes a vibrational match to healthy love. Toxic dynamics that once felt magnetic now feel heavy and misaligned. Emotional chaos no longer stimulates her. Trauma bonds no longer have power over her. The patterns, relationships, and dynamics that once mirrored her wounds no longer resonate with her spirit. She has risen beyond them. Her evolution has changed her palette for love. Immature cycles, chasing, overgiving, hoping someone will change, lose their allure. She no longer desires to be the healer, the fixer, or the emotional anchor for someone not ready to meet her. She chooses clarity over confusion, peace over intensity, and truth over fantasy. In this sacred rewriting of desire, the feminine begins to attract relationships that reflect her wholeness. She no longer seeks emotional rescue because she no longer abandons herself. She seeks partnership, not someone to save her, but someone who can walk beside her. Someone who aligns with her vibration, not her wounds. This is the divine feminine reclaiming her desire, not as yearning or dependency, but as a sacred compass guiding her toward authentic love, emotional maturity, and soul-level partnership. Her desire becomes a prayer, a frequency, and a declaration of who she has become. 3. The feminine learns energetic boundaries. One of the most powerful signs of the divine feminine's spiritual evolution is the transformation of her relationship with boundaries. In the past, setting boundaries may have felt painful, like rejection, confrontation, or the risk of losing someone she deeply cared for. But as she rises into her true alignment, boundaries begin to form naturally, almost effortlessly. They no longer come from fear, but from clarity. No longer from defense, but from dignity. She becomes grounded in what she will and will not participate in, honoring the truth of her soul without apology or guilt. These boundaries are not walls, they are invitations, guidelines that show others how to love her, how to meet her, and how to engage with her in a way that respects her spiritual growth. This shift is a reflection of her deepening self-respect. She no longer sets boundaries to protect an old wound. She sets them because she now recognizes her value. She understands that energy is sacred, and not everyone is meant to access it. She becomes firm, not rigid, steady, not closed. And in that steadiness, she begins to attract relationships and environments that resonate with her higher frequency. When boundaries come from love for the self rather than fear of others, they hold a power that shapes her entire energetic field. Alongside this transformation, the feminine begins learning an even deeper spiritual skill, the ability to stop absorbing emotions that are not hers. Her emotional body becomes clearer, lighter, more sovereign. She recognizes that she is not meant to carry the masculine's fears, his wounds, his confusion, or his karmic burdens. For so long, she felt responsible for the emotional landscape of the connection, believing that if she could hold enough space, love deeply enough, or remain patient enough, she could help him heal. But now she understands that healing cannot be carried, it must be chosen. This clarity sharpens her intuitive senses. When energy enters her field, she instantly knows whether it belongs to her or to someone else. She no longer confuses empathy with responsibility. She no longer mistakes sensitivity for obligation. If a feeling is not hers, she releases it with grace. If an emotion tries to anchor itself into her spirit, she returns it to its source with love. This sovereignty becomes one of the most powerful steps in her ascension. She becomes a clear channel, a stable vessel, and a grounded presence. In learning energetic boundaries, the divine feminine protects her light, so she can shine without being drained, love without losing herself, and walk her path without carrying what was never meant to be hers. 4. The feminine's relationship with silence transforms. As the divine feminine rises into her higher spiritual frequency, one of the most profound transformations she experiences is the shift in her relationship with silence. Silence, which once triggered fear, insecurity, or the sense of abandonment, becomes something entirely different. It no longer feels like a void she must survive or a punishment she must interpret. Instead, silence becomes a space where she feels grounded, supported, and deeply connected to herself. She no longer panics when the connection pauses or when the masculine turns inward. The absence of words no longer threatens her sense of worth. She sees masculine quietness not as rejection, but as reflection, an internal process he must move through, just as she once did. This is a sacred turning point. The feminine begins to understand that silence is part of the spiritual journey, not a detour from it. It is a pause meant to realign energies, not a break in the bond. With this realization, she stops projecting fear onto stillness. She stops creating stories in the gaps. She no longer associates silence with loss or distance, because she now trusts the energetic truth beneath the surface. She knows the connection does not disappear simply because communication quiets. In this awareness, silence becomes her ally. And then something even more powerful unfolds. Silence becomes her portal to power. In the quiet moments, she discovers the depth of her intuition. In the stillness, she hears the wisdom of her soul more clearly. Instead of filling silence with fear, she fills it with purpose, meditation, reflection, creativity, self-nurturing, gratitude, expansion. She turns inward not to seek validation, but to strengthen her inner world. Through silence, she reconnects with the parts of herself that were once overshadowed by emotional intensity. She finds clarity where confusion used to thrive. She finds strength where vulnerability once felt overwhelming. She finds inner peace where anxiety once lived. Silence becomes the space where her spiritual evolution accelerates, where her energy stabilizes and her vibration rises. Most importantly, she becomes peaceful in uncertainty. This is one of the highest union frequencies. Silence no longer pushes her into fear, it pulls her into alignment. In stillness, she becomes more receptive, more intuitive, more sovereign. She no longer waits anxiously, she allows gracefully. When the feminine reaches this state, silence transforms from an emotional threat into a sacred bridge, connecting her to her own wisdom, to the masculine's inner process, and to the divine timing orchestrating their union. 5. An internal union begins before the external one. One of the deepest spiritual truths on the twin flame journey is that union begins within the feminine long before it appears in the physical world. Before two souls come together externally, the divine feminine must experience an inner merging, a reunion with the parts of herself she once abandoned, suppressed, or scattered. This is the moment she begins balancing her own inner masculine energy. It is subtle at first, but unmistakable. She starts developing qualities that once felt distant or challenging: discipline, clarity, direction, and focus. She no longer waits for the masculine to anchor her, guide her, or give her the stability she believed she was missing. Instead, she becomes her own anchor. She becomes her own structure. She becomes her own direction. This balance does not harden her, it strengthens her softness. The divine feminine realizes she can hold deep emotional wisdom while also holding strong boundaries. She can be intuitive while also being grounded. She can flow while also moving with intention. This is the healthy inner masculine rising to meet her, not in conflict, but in harmony. It is the merging of her spiritual strength with her emotional depth. She no longer relies on the masculine to fulfill what she has not yet cultivated within herself. She stops projecting her unmet needs outward and begins meeting them internally. This is the first spark of inner union. From this place of balance, the feminine moves out of fragmentation and into integration. The old split within her, between longing and fear, between desire and doubt, between hope and insecurity, dissolves. Her emotional, mental, and energetic bodies begin working together instead of pulling her in different directions. She becomes whole in a way she has never felt before. She stops battling her inner contradictions and begins living from alignment. She stops feeling torn between what she knows spiritually and what she fears emotionally. In this inner unity, she steps into a frequency of wholeness, one that no longer vibrates with lack, attachment, or wounded desire. This internal coherence becomes the very vibration required for external union. Because two souls cannot merge in the physical if they are still fragmented within themselves. The universe orchestrates union through resonance, not longing. When the feminine reaches this integrated state, her energy becomes a match for the divine partnership she seeks. She no longer chases the connection, she becomes the connection. She no longer waits for union, she embodies union. And it is this embodiment, this inner merging, that signals to the universe that she is ready for the external union her soul has always known was meant for her. 6. The feminine shifts from expectation to embodied worth. One of the most profound shifts in the divine feminine's awakening is the transition from expectation to embodied worth. This change happens quietly but powerfully, marking a turning point in her spiritual evolution. She realizes that expectation is rooted in fear. Fear that things may not unfold the way her heart desires, fear that the masculine may not show up as she hopes, fear that union might slip away if she doesn't hold tightly enough. But as her consciousness expands, these expectations begin to dissolve. She no longer needs the masculine to behave a certain way for her to feel grounded. She no longer clings to timelines or imagines emotional contracts he was never consciously part of. She frees herself from the emotional waiting room she once lived in. Instead of hoping for movement, she begins embodying her own movement. Instead of needing validation, she becomes her own reassurance. This release is not indifference, it is liberation. It is the feminine stepping out of the energetic posture of lack and into the expansive space of truth. In this space, she realizes that the universe does not respond to expectation, it responds to alignment. And alignment cannot be forced through waiting or gripping. It can only flow from presence, trust, and inner stability. As expectation falls away, something extraordinary begins to rise within her, embodied worth. Her worth stops being a concept and becomes a lived experience. She understands deep in her core that union does not define her value. It does not elevate her, complete her, or rescue her. She is worthy now. She is whole now. She is enough now. This realization becomes her anchor. It gives her a calm, steady presence that no external circumstance can shake. From this grounded worth, her standards rise naturally, not because she demands more from others, but because she finally demands truth from herself. She no longer entertains inconsistent energy, breadcrumbed attention, or emotional ambiguity. Not out of anger or ego, but out of clarity. She knows what aligns with her soul and what does not, and she chooses accordingly. This unshakable energy becomes her new vibration, and this vibration is the very frequency of union. It is the state in which she no longer tries to attract love through longing, but through authenticity. It is the moment she stops chasing and starts receiving. It is the shift that signals to the universe, and to the masculine, that she is ready for a connection built on resonance, not expectation. When the feminine embodies her worth, she becomes magnetic. She becomes aligned. She becomes the living expression of the love she once sought outside herself. And in that embodiment, everything meant for her begins moving effortlessly toward her. And there you have it, 6 profound signs that the divine feminine has begun preparing for union. If these shifts resonated with you, if you felt something awaken inside you as you listened, trust that it's not a coincidence. Your soul recognizes truth long before your mind does. Remember, union doesn't begin when the masculine changes. Union begins when you rise. When your energy stabilizes. When your spirit steps into the version of you who can finally hold the love you've been evolving toward. Thank you for watching and for sharing this sacred journey with me. If you felt aligned with this message, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep spiritual guidance, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, Which of the 6 signs are you experiencing right now? Your answer might be the confirmation someone else needs. Until next time, stay aligned, stay open, and trust the journey. Because your union is already unfolding in ways your soul can feel, even before your eyes can see it.